Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top at the new Mishnah. The previous Mishnah discussed when a person wants to set up 2 Eruvin al Tnai that one of them is Chal. That means he sets up an Eruv in one direction and a second one in a different direction with a Tnai or certain condition that one will then be effective on Shabbos. Because of course, you cannot have both of them to be effective in the same Shabbos if they're in different directions. Our Mishnah now discusses when you have Yom Tif and Shabbos that are next to each other. That means, let's say Yom Tif is Chal on Erev Shabbos. Do we say that it is considered to be one Kedusha? That it's one long Kedusha of Yom Tif and Shabbos? Or do we say there are 2 separate Kedushos? That means that there's a Kedusha of Yom Tif, and independently there's a separate Kedusha of Shabbos. Now even Yom Tif, like Shabbos, also has the requirement of making Tchum. Dahainu, there's an Isser going out 2,000 Amos beyond the Tchum. And therefore a person wants to extend his Tchum, he would have to then make an Erev Tchumin. If we hold that it's one Kedusha, then it means to say that one is enabled to then make an Eruv that is going to be in the same direction, but not in 2 different directions. If, however, you're going to say that there are 2 Kedushos, then we would enable then one to make an Eruv in one direction as well as another direction. If a person holds that it's Kedusha Achas, Yom Tov and Shabbos is one Kedusha because they're both Isser b'Malacha, and there's no day that is mafsik between the 2 of them, so it's considered one Kedusha Achas. Then we have a Kula and we have a Chumra. The Kula is then that you can then make an Eruv that will then go towards both Yom Tov and as well Shabbos. But the Chumra is that it can only go in one direction. And then the opposite as well. If you hold that it's 2 Kedushos, because Yom Tov and Shabbos have different levels of Kedusha, Shabbos is more Kadosh than Yom Tif, then you have the Chumrah that the Erev that you're setting up on Erev Yom Tif is not going to then be good for 2 days, because if it would be consumed, for example, after the first day, then it cannot be used for the second day. But you also have the Kula that you can then have a Eruv on each direction. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer Yontif Hasamuch LeShabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says when you have Yontif that is juxtaposed to Shabbos, that means either it becomes either before Shabbos as an Erev Shabbos or it's Motzoi Shabbos. As follows: whether Yontif comes out to be on Erev Shabbos or Yontif comes to be on Motzoi Shabbos afterwards. Ma'arev Adam Shnei Eruvim, a person can set up, according to Rabbi Eliezer, 2 Eruvim, on that, of course, Erev Yom Tif. V'oimer, and make the following declaration. Now, the 2 Eruvim that he's setting up are in different directions. And he says as follows: Eruvi barishoin la mizrach, ubasheni lema'arav. My Eruv on the first day is going to be towards the east, let's say 1,000 amos to the east. And my Eruv that I'm setting up for the second day for Shabbos is going to be 1,000 amos to the west. Barishoin lemarov ubesheni lamizrach. Or alternatively, he wants the first Eruv to be effective for the west. That means the first day of Yom Tif, he'll be then having 1,000 amos to the left. And the second day, meaning Shabbos, will be then 1,000 amos to the east. A third possibility, Eruvi barishoin ubasheni kibnei iri. Or here he only sets up one Eruv on Erev Yom Tif, and he says, the Eruv that I'm setting up is for the first day for Yom Tif, so that I can go ahead and utilize that Eruv. However, the second day, I don't want to have an Eruv, I want to go based on my Tchum of the ear. Eruvi b'sheni ubarishon kibnei iri. Or alternatively, I want to set up my Eruv for the second day, meaning for Shabbos, but for the first day, I will have the city's limits of 2,000 amos. V'chachamim oimrim, Oy me'arev leruach achas, oy eino ma'arev kol iker. Chacham says either you're going to then make an eruv in one direction, or not an eruv at all. And they go on to say, Oy ma'arev l'sheinei yomim, oy eino ma'arev kol iker. Or you make an eruv for 2 days, or not then one at all. But again, it has to be in the same direction. Keitzad yaseh, the Chacham going on to say, what does one have to do? Malichoy barishoin. He would have to then send a shaliach to go ahead and take the food to set up the eruv for the first day. Umachshich alov v'noitloi ubaloi. Then he should go and wait there until chashecha, whereby he can then take that food with him in order to then be shomer, to protect the food so it doesn't get consumed, and they can use it for the second day. And then b'sheni machshich alov v'oichloi ubaloi. And the second day, then he'll go back to the place where he made the eruv in the first place, and he will then wait until nightfall, and then he will consume the eruv. Here we're talking about if it was Shabbos, he would not be able to then go with that food beyond Daled Amos. He'd have to then consume it over there. According to this, comes out according to the Chachamim, he will then benefit that he'll have then 2,000 amos where he set up the eruv, and he will also benefit that he can go ahead and consume, he can eat the eruv for the second day. Nechal berishon eruvoy l'rishon ve'ein eruv l'sheni. If he were to then eat the eruv will be consumed after the first day, then you cannot then use that eruv for the second day. The eruv has to be kayum. And that's because there, the Chachamim say it's not necessarily considered to be 2 days. And therefore, if it's 1 day, you would have to have then the eruv to then be both for the first day as well as for the second day. Omar lehen Rabbi Eliezer turns to the Chachamim and says, Moidim atem li shehein shtei kedushos. However, you are moided to me since you say that it's not good enough to rely on the eruv, the food that was set up for the first day, for also the second day, which would be mashma, then it's not just 1 day. It will be mashma that it's actually 2 kedushos. So therefore, Rabbi Eliezer says, you are then being moided to me. The Gemara will explain the position of both the Chachamim as well as Rabbi Eliezer in the following Gemara. Says the Gemara, L'ruach achas ma'inihu. First the Gemara asks, when the Chachamim, they argue against Rabbi Eliezer, and they say 2 things. They say, Oy ma'arev l'ruach achas, and then they go on to say, Oy ma'arev l'shnei yomim. Ask the Gemara, L'ruach achas ma'inihu. What is it meant when they said they can only make a eruv in one direction? L'shnei yomim, they're referring to what? For 2 days. In one direction. L'shnei yom, when they argued to Rabbi Eliezer, they can only make an eruv for 2 days. Ma'inihu, what was their kavana? What did they mean to say? L'ruach achas, only for one direction. If that's the case, ask the Gemara, Hainu kamaisa. Then it's repetitive. The same argument that the Chachamim are making to Rabbi Eliezer is being repeated. Answers the Gemara, Hochi ka'amrei le Rabbanon Rabbi Eliezer. This is what the Rabbanon were then arguing against Rabbi Eliezer. Are you not in agreement that one cannot make 2 eruvin on the same day, 1/2 for the north and 1/2 for the south? So Rabbi Eliezer says, yes, of course, that's correct. Then they go on to say their argument, in the same way that you agree that you cannot make 2 eruvin in the same day, one for half day going north and one for the half day going south, then so too then you cannot make 2 eruvin for 2 days, one for the east and one for the west. In other words, what the Chacham were saying was a build-up type of argument. They're building it up by first saying that you cannot make an eruv only in one direction, right? Oy ma'arev l'ruach achas, and that you agree if it's going to be the same day, you cannot make 2 eruvin in 2 different directions. one half of the day for the north and one half of the day for the south. Then they go on to say, to build up and say, then you'll agree when it comes to over here, 2 days, that you cannot make 2 Eruvin in 2 different directions in 2 different days. Rabbi Eliezer Hasam Kedusha Achas Hochek Beis Kedusha. Rabbi Eliezer says the reason why when it's in the same day you cannot make 2 Eruvin, 1 half day for the north and 1 half day for the south, is because that's 1 Kedusha. That's 1 day, either Shabbos that you're making an Eruv for, or if you're making an Eruv for Yom Tiv, but it's 1 day that you're making an Eruv for. But here there's talking about 2 different days, Yom Tiv into Shabbos, and they have 2 different Kedushas. That's why you can make 2 different Eruvin on Erev Yom Tiv, 1 for the Yom Tiv in one direction, and 1 for the subsequent day, the Shabbos, in a different direction. Omar Lein Rabbi Eliezer. Now Rabbi Eliezer goes and argues against the Chachamim. Do you not agree with me? Rabbi Eliezer says to the Chachamim that if a person made an Eruv with his presence, literally with his feet, it means another way of making an Eruv is in addition to the normal way we've been talking about by putting food in the Makom Shvisa. Well, the person himself can go and make an Eruv Beraglov with his presence. So Rabbi Eliezer says, do you not agree with me that if he made an Eruv with his presence for the first day, then he would also then have to go back and make an Eruv for his presence for the second day? Nechal Eruva b'yom rishon ein yotze Allah b'yom sheni. If he consumed the Eruv, he would put out an Eruv of food for the first day and he consumed it, he ate that food, then it would not be valid for the second day. Amuloi aval. So they say to him, yes, we agree, that is correct. Then hailoi beis kedushas hein. Then certainly he says, be'emes, there are 2 kedushas here. Because if it were not 2 kedushas, you can rely on the food that you put on the first Erev Yom Tif for both the Yom Tif and the Shabbos. Even if it's consumed after the first day of Yom Tif, it could be valid for the second day of Shabbos because it's all considered to be 1 kedusha. Elamai, it must be 2 kedushos, like I'm saying. The Rabbanan answers the Gemara to explain the position of the Rabbanan. Sveiku mesafke luhu. They have a suffix if indeed we consider to be 1 kedusha or 2 kedushas. When Shabbos and Yom Tif are next to each other, in this case Yom Tif goes into Shabbos, do we say it's 1 kedusha or do we say it's 2 kedushas? And therefore, v'hocha l'chumra. Therefore, we go l'chumra and say that he's not able to make 2 eruvin in 2 different directions because maybe it's 1 kedusha. That's 1 chumrah. Or we go the other chumrah and say that if you consume the eruv after the first day, then it cannot be used towards the second day because maybe it's 2 different days of kedusha. Amruloi le Rabbi Eliezer. Now the Chachamim say back to Rabbi Eliezer, do you not agree that you cannot make an eruv on Yom Tif day itself? Let's say in this case Friday for Shabbos. Amar lehen aval. He says back to them, yes, that's correct. One cannot make on Yom Tif to Shabbos. Then holoi kedusha achasi. Then certainly be'emes. Then it's 1 day of kedusha. The 2 days are considered 1 day of kedusha, because after all, says the Chacham to Rabbi Eliezer, that then it's like saying that you cannot make in 1 day 2 different eruvim in 2 different directions. So too over here, you would not be able to then make an eruv on Yom Tif for Shabbos because it's 1 kedusha. Rabbi Eliezer explains Gemara explains Rabbi Eliezer's position. Hasa mishum hachana. The reason why one cannot then make an eruv on Yom Tif for Shabbos is because it would be a problem of hachana. One cannot be mechin from Yom Tif to Shabbos. That's why it would not be possible to then make an eruv on Yom Tif for Shabbos. But certainly, according to the shita of Rabbi Eliezer, that there's 2 kedushas here, one could yes make an eruv on erev Yom Tif for both Yom Tif and for Shabbos. The Gemara now brings a brisa stating different opinions in regards to when Yom Tif and Shabbos are next to each other, whether you can make an eruv for both or not. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, Eruv beraglov bayom rishon ma'ariv beraglov b'yom sheni. A person will make an Eruv with his presence on the first day, then he'll have to make a Eruv with his presence on the second day. Nechal Eruvoy b'yom rishon, ein yoytze Allah b'yom sheni. If he ate the Eruv on the first day, then it will not be valid to have a valid Eruv for the second day. Div Rebbe, this is the words of Rebbe. In other words, Rebbe holds of the Shita that there are shtei kedushas over here. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, top of Lamed Ches Lamed Beis, Hareze Chamar Gamal. He says this is Chamar Gamal. Chamar Gamal we saw in the Mishnah that states as follows, that just like a person who leads, who wants to ride manhig, the chamor, the donkey driver, he goes from behind the donkey to push the donkey. Whereas a person who's then a camel driver, he pulls the camel. So if he's doing both of them at the same time, then he's going to then have a shared position. So too over here is going to be a shared position. Since it's a suffix as to whether it's 1 day of Kedusha or 2 days of Kedusha, 2 Kedushos, thereby, this is the Shita of the Chachamim that we saw before, thereby they're going to then have a suffix as to then only be able to use the shared amount, the Mokum that's Meshutaf. And therefore, if he makes an Eruv to the east, then he's going to then ultimately only be able to then, even if it's going to be, let's say, 1,000 amos to the east, and then he makes, let's say, 1,000 amos to the west, so then he's going to then only be able to then use the Mokum that's Meshutaf. The Hainu, that let's say the Mokum to the east, we said is 1,000 amos, and then from there, if the Eruv would be valid, then he'd be able to go 2,000 amos in all directions. Well, since we are not certain, so we'll only give him the Mokum between his first original Tchum and that 1,000 amos. And therefore, he'll only have that area itself, 1,000 amos from his original position, in other words, plus another 1,000 amos. He'll have basically the area that's meshutaf between the original tchum and that which he's added the erev tchumim for. In other words, we won't give him the additional area, only the place that is being shared by both of them. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Yishmael, Ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, Oimrim Eruv Beraglov Barishon. If he made an Eruv with his presence for the first day of Yontif, Ein Ma'ara Beragl B'Shen, he does not need to make a second Eruv with his presence for the second day of Shabbos. Ne'echal Eruva B'Yom Rishon, if the Eruv was consumed after the first day, Yoytze Allah B'Sheni, he would then be Yoytze with that even for the second day, even though the Eruv has already been eaten, because here this Shita holds that the Kedusha is one Kedusha, and therefore that which he set up on Erev Yontif, let's say Thursday afternoon, for both Thursdays, for Fridays Yontif Eruv and the Shabbos Eruv, that Eruv is going to be satisfying for both days. So even if he then consumes it after the first day, it was already chal not only for the first day of Yontif, but it's also chal for the Eruv of the second day of Shabbos.